Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit North Node, square, opposition, or inconjunct one's natal Saturn. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve the North Node, it can be about one's future, destiny, what you're learning and aspiring to be, where you're directed toward. And when you have the transit of the North Node basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Saturn, well, I'm going to elaborate on that. When I say basically adverse aspect, okay, squares and oppositions, those aspects are negative and adverse in astrology, but the inconjunct is neutral. But a neutral aspect can have good and bad qualities in it, coupled with the fact that an inconjunct can often require an adjustment or transition, and that, of course, in turn, that can cause some tension and exasperation. So collectively, basically, I do see this as an adverse transit. Now, the thing is, when transit North Node, again, when it basically is making an adverse aspect to one's natal Saturn, it may manifest in one's future, destiny, that mission, purpose, what you're learning and aspiring to be, or you're directed toward, that may conflict with your career and laborious work at this time. If the natal Saturn is in Aquarius, it could be doing something career related, work related with astrology or astronomy, with computers, electronics, innovation. It could be where, and say if the natal transit North Node is in Taurus, it could be doing something, more just about having peace and stability, simple things in your life, creature comforts. Money. It can be too where, Saturn again is connected with laborious work, and if the natal Saturn is in Pisces, say, it could be feel less fortunate, or doing something for prisoners in some cases, or something where you're just working very hard, where you're self-sacrificing for others, and in the transit of the North Node, where your future may be conflicting with this at this time. Now, Saturn is also connected with restrictions and limitations. You might feel at this time there might be something inhibiting in your life. There's something restricting that might be conflicting with you trying to move forward at this time. If you have, say, the natal Saturn is in the zodiac sign Cancer, and or the fourth house as an example, it could be taking care of a debilitating home or family member. It can be, this is just a very tough transit, because the North Node is about, again, going toward our future, and Saturn is laborious efforts. It won't take more effort due to this transit to really move toward where you're going, where you want to go to this time. It doesn't mean you wouldn't get there, but this could be that time, whatever it is you may be directed to is indicated by the North Node transit by sign and house. It might be a little more tough going at this time, more so than usual, to get to where you want to be going. Now, the thing is, too, Saturn is also connected with responsibilities. So let's say, for example, you have the natal Saturn in Taurus and or the second house. It might be just, some responsibility to generating your own income to your possessions at this time. And just maybe, and even perhaps doing something which is all going to augment your own self-esteem, your self-worth, and how you feel about yourself at this time. And it might really be something which might be, at odds with where you feel, you want to go as far as your destiny, your mission, your purpose at the time of this transit. Now, Saturn can also be connected with the father. So you might feel at this time, maybe your future is not really tied in with your father as much as it had been in the past. It could be where there might be perhaps a separation, I would say, especially like with the opposition aspect, because that's the furthest you can go, from one point to another in astrology. Of course, 180 degrees is the biggest aspect that something could have, and it puts one point furthest away from the other, as far as astrological energies go. And it can be, a time where, again, the father, even older people and authority figures, these are people that maybe you feel at this time they're not really, you don't really want, you may not want them to be part of their future or your future, or maybe they've even taken a break and they've distanced themselves for whatever reason, and whether it's they're sorting their own dilemmas out or whatever it is they're doing, it might be where they're just not part of what you're actually, part of where you want to go right now, whether you're not getting, the encouragement from them or what have you, or whether they're just physically, literally away at this time. Now, anatomically speaking, okay, Saturn is connected with the knees, the bones, the joints, hamstrings, and the gallbladder. And it can be a time, if you have any issues with these at this point in time, of course, that could inhibit progress in what you're going after as far as your future, where you feel directed toward, and what you're learning and aspiring to be at this time. And the thing about this is, this is a a transit where obviously, you're talking about basically adverse transit, and of course there is always going to be some tension, some exasperation with it, but it doesn't mean you can't get through it at this time. Another thing too is where Saturn is also connected with fears. So maybe there's apprehension and fear in going after what you want at this time. North Node is also, when you have transits involving the North Node, it could also be connected with issues one may have to address and confront. So that it could be where you might be more fearful, more hesitant of doing so at this time, more so than usual. Even if your chart, indicates, you're very, brave, very a lot of fortitude and courage and bravery. Say if you have like a dominant Aries and or Leo chart, it might still be where you might have certain fear at this time in going after, where you feel you're directed toward, what as far as moving forward, being progressive, moving ahead. And another thing too is that Saturn is also associated with chronic illnesses. So if you have a chronic illness at this time, it could hamper what you're trying to do in terms, again, of your future, your destiny, your mission, your purpose at this point in time. And whether the chronic illness, whether it may be at a point where it's worse than it had been if you had, assuming you had this prior to the transit. I would say in most cases that would be the case, because the probability of the onset of a debilitating chronic illness, of that occurring at the same time of the start of this transit, obviously would be fairly improbable and minuscule. But anyway, Saturn is also connected with delays. And when you have this transit of the North Node basically making an adverse aspect to the natal Saturn, it may manifest in some kind of delay in terms of what you're going after, what you may be learning and aspiring to be. Let's say you have the transit of the North Node is in Libra in the 7th house. It could be doing something with artwork in a courtroom. I guess it's like a court artist or courtroom artist or something, but you know what I'm talking about. It can be something too, when you look at this transit, okay, another way that this may manifest, it could be where the qualities and attributes that need to be developed, it may conflict with your career at this point in time. Now let's say, for example, if the transit North Node is in Sagittarius in the 12th house, it could be perhaps showing goodwill and benevolence, which is Sagittarius, toward the less fortunate. It could be giving them help, inspiring those people, giving them more enthusiasm and exuberance, and giving them more of that will to actually do something positive for themselves. It could also be, issues that need to be confronted or addressed at this time. It might challenge your responsibilities. Issues that need to be confronted and addressed, of course, that's associated with the North Node. Responsibilities as Saturn. This could be, let's say, for example, if the transit North Node is in the zodiac sign Cancer in the 5th house, it could be showing dedication and devotion and sympathy, which is Cancer, to lovers, to children at this time. And it might also be involving nurturing your own hobbies, your own fun and enjoyment at this time. Hold on a moment, people. Now, sorry about that, I'm back, but anyway, also too, where the future lies may conflict with laborious work at this time. Say if the transit north node is in Aries in the second house, it could be doing some kind of combat sports, self-defense training. It could be which might be elevating or augment your self-worth, your self-esteem, and how you feel about yourself, which is the second house. Now, some cases it could be where chronic illness, which is Saturn, may make pursuing that mission harder, that purpose where you feel you're destined toward. Now, if the transit north node is in Virgo in the 8th house, as an example, it could be analytical, which is Virgo, astrology, or psychology, which is connected with the 8th house. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.